Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar, which is Leadership. Worry not about becoming one, but worry more about how to do it. So welcome back to people who've been here before, and welcome to everybody else. It's lovely to see you all. So today we have the speaker, Dr. William Davies, who is Chief Executive at the APT, and myself, here to answer, to ask your questions. I'm Amy George, Deputy Director at the APT. Okay, so that's enough from me. So today's course tutor is Dr. William Davies. He has been shortlisted for Investors and People Leader of the Year in 2020 and actually in 2019 as well. Dr. William Davies is the CEO and Head of Applied Clinical Psychology at the Association for Psychological Therapies. And for more information about Will, see Wikipedia, William Davies, psychologist. So that is everything from me. So over to you, Will. You okay to share your screen?
Yep, thanks, Amy, very much. So if you stop sharing, then we'll just be, that's lovely. Yeah, it's slightly sort of funny story about how this came about, because what happened was Mark in APT, he sent, unbeknown to me, he sent an application to Investors and People, suggesting I should be Leader of the Year in their Leader of the Year competition, which they have about like 250 entries, something like that. And I didn't know about that until it had gone off and so on. And when I found out, I was really pleased. I was delighted with that, and that was good enough for me. I thought there's no chance I'm going to get anywhere with it, because there's so many people, and there's so many big firms like Coca-Cola and Honda and all sorts of firms about the place entering these things. So, but I was pleased that somebody thought that was a good thing to do, and that was enough for me. And then what happened? Next thing was I found I got shortlisted. That means getting through to the last 5. I thought that's amazing. Last 5. That's absolutely fantastic. So I was very pleased, but I was also a little bit embarrassed, because what happens is you go up to a big event, and then they announce the first 3. They don't say who's 4th and 5th. They just announced the podium, 1, 2, and 3. So I thought that's going to be embarrassing, because once they look closely, they're going to see that I shouldn't really have been in the last 5, and and I'm going to know that, and they're going to know that, and everyone's going to know that. Anyway, I was on the podium, as they say, in the top 3. So I was so pleased. I thought no more of it. Really. I just settled back, being pleased, and then I thought, well, I should actually, because I'm just doing a job of leading the APT. And I thought there's lots of people doing parallel jobs, leading whatever organization they're doing or whatever team they're leading. So I thought I should try and put something together to say what I do and share it with you. And if you think there's some good ideas there, then all well and good. If not, then cross them out and or say what you think, perhaps in the chat, because Amy's absolutely right. It's really good to hear what you have to say. Not just questions, but contributions in the chat facility. And Amy's your spokesperson, because I'm not actually able to read what you're saying while I'm trying to talk. So Amy does that, and she will interrupt and be your spokesperson and say things, as I say, frighteningly well. So no more ado. Let's see if I can share the screen as Amy suggests. And where are we? That looks like it, I hope. Yeah, that looks good to me. Okay, there we are. So just before, there is a shortcut. I don't really like shortcuts, but there is a bit of a shortcut, and here it is. And that is to do something that you really care about, you know about, and for which you are really well suited. If you got those 3 boxes ticked, then people normally pick that up. So that is a little bit of a shortcut, and they sort of fall in behind you and say, come on then, please lead us. Really care about it, you know about what you're talking about, and you're really well suited to it. For anybody, I don't know who's, I know we've had some inquiries from the United States, and we got a kind of United States flavor to it today, because it's the inauguration of the new president in the United States. But if anyone's bemused in Turkey or wherever it would be, United States, then this chap, he plays for Manchester United. And he's become famous in England because he thought all children, all children that much money from poor families should have free meals given to them. And he got such a sort of movement behind him that's what's happening. The schools are providing free meals to all poor family children. So that's very good, but it's not quite being a leader, to be fair, because he didn't actually have to do it himself. He didn't have to lead any team that was doing it. But so, the government has to do that, or whoever it is has to do that. But he just got the campaign together. But the same thing applies. It doesn't matter whether it's Churchill or whatever it would be. He really cared about the rising menace, as he put it, in the 1930s. He knew all about it, and he was very well suited to it. So by the time the war broke out, Second World War, everybody said, yes, please, you please lead us. No matter who the Prime Minister is currently, you please take over and do it. So that's the shortcut, but from now on, no shortcuts. We're just looking at the boxes that we need to tick. If we're in a job of leadership, then there are certain boxes we need to tick. And this is the first one. You need to measure how well you are doing. Now, this chap we're looking at here, he is the manager of Arsenal. So he seems to be a really good manager. He looks the part, he talks very well, he's very knowledgeable about football, he's very committed to Arsenal, he used to play for Arsenal. He's a thoroughly nice guy and knows all about football and very energetic and committed. So on the face of it, he should be a good manager. The only trouble is that Arsenal are halfway down the league. They're 10th, when for 20 years they were in the top 4. So we have to ask ourselves, will he turn out to be a good manager? It's his first post as management, and I suspect he'll turn out to be a very good manager indeed. But time will tell. The great thing he's got on his side is that he has a measure of how well he's doing every week or twice a week. There's a score comes in, 1-0 to Arsenal or against Arsenal. So whatever it is, however well he's doing, he knows exactly. And so does everybody else know how well he's doing or badly. And that's the same with us. He's leading his team and we all lead our teams. So we all need to have a measure of how we're doing. He's got it ready made. We also have to have a measure. Give you an example of how it pans out, for example, in APT. Our main thing is to deliver training courses. And what we did, we actually measured, we actually surveyed and statistically analysed what is it that people care about. There's two things. In a training course, they care about how well it was presented and how relevant it is. And both of those, they're independent of each other. They're not correlated with each other, but anything else you ask them correlates with one or other of those two things. It's got to be well presented and it's got to be relevant and usable. So what do you think we measure? We measure those two elements. And it has to be, every course has to average more than 90% on each of those two scales separately. So every course and every tutor has to do really well on both of those scales. So just like Mikel Arteta has his measure of success, we have our measure of success just the same, and it comes in just as regularly, in fact, rather more regularly. So one way or another, we have to measure how we're doing. Okay, next thing is we have to recruit a really good team. Now, it's interesting because when you look, for example, at sports, yeah, they get used to the idea that you've got to have a really good team. You can't be a good manager if you haven't got a good team. So, but it's interesting when you look at a lot of healthcare, that doesn't seem to apply. People say, no, you just got to take the people you've got, which kind of has its advantages. I can understand that. But ideally, if you're really going to produce a top performance, you want the right people on the bus. Do you know this saying? The right people on the bus, the wrong people off the bus, and the right people in the right seats. So that's it's an old saying, but it takes a lot of beating. The right people on the wrong, the right people on the bus, the wrong people off the bus, and the right people in the right seats. Okay. Oh yeah. Here's an example. That is all these pictures are clues as to what I meant to say. That is actually, that's a cabinet. That's a cabinet. So, for example, if you were running the country, you would have your cabinet. And I think it's called the same in the United States as it's called over here, a cabinet of ministers or something else, secretaries. So you need the right people in the cabinet. So that might be easy. How many people you get into a cabinet? Is it 25 or 30 or something? You need the right people there. That's good. And you don't want any wrong people there. People who shouldn't be there, you need to weed them out somehow. That's good too. And then you have to get the right people doing the right jobs. So the chancellor who looks after the money they need to know about finances. If they don't have a head for money, then they're not going to make a very good chancellor, and so on. The education person needs to have an interest and a knowledge of education, and so on and so forth. So, right people in the right seats, right people on the bus, wrong people off the bus, and the right people in the right seats. One afternoon long ago, it's a nice picture, isn't it? One afternoon long ago, we all sat down at APT and in HQ, and we thought, well, let's just list out all the tasks that APT has to do. And there's actually an amazing number. To run any sort of organization, you've probably twigged that there's an awful lot of tasks have to be done. But then again, there's a number of people, and each of those people has their particular talents and real aptitudes and so on. So there's an awful lot of aptitudes floating around as well. And what we did, we had our list of tasks, our list of aptitudes belonging to different people, and we matched up. We just matched up systematically, spent a whole afternoon matching up each task to the best person to do it. And that was just such a good afternoon's work, because at the end of that, we went off and it worked amazingly well. It's one of those theoretical exercises that you go off and do it, and then it works amazingly well. And you think, well, why didn't we do that before? But it did. And of course, everybody knows they're the best person suited to whatever task it is they're doing. And that is a fantastic knowledge. And you look around you and you see that you couldn't do any of the other tasks as well as the person who's doing them does. So that's a great, great thing to do, to get everyone in the right seat, sitting in the right seat. Okay. Any questions or comments or contributions, James, or should I just surge on?
At the moment, I think people are just enthralled listening, but okay. So there has been a few comments about whether you can access the slides afterwards. You can't access the slides, but you can access the recording, just so everyone knows, on www.apt.ac. So they'll be there. Great.
Thank you very much. Now, here's a tricky one. It's a question of choosing on merit alone. You're talking about your team. So you'll choose the team on merit alone. And of course, it's one of these things like motherhood and apple pie. We'd all agree with this as a great thing. Meritocracy, choose on merit alone, etc., etc. It's all jolly good. Like when you're going for surgery, it's, well, yes. It's one of those thoughts that if you're off for surgery and it's one of those operations where you've got a 50-50 chance of pulling through, how would you like to choose your surgeon? Probably on merit alone. Just give me the best person, whoever it is who's best at it. Let me have that person, please. And everything we do, it seems to me, is just the same. We can't say, well, our jobs and our teams and the job we do is less important than that, so we can have anybody do it. No, that's almost like the yardstick, I think. But it's not that easy to do, I don't think. It's not that easy. And for example, we have a team of, I don't know, something approaching 100 or so tutors. And they are chosen purely on merit. And you might say, well, how do you know that? You know, if you talk to someone, you're influenced by all sorts of factors when you talk to somebody. Is it really just the merit of how good they are being a tutor? I'll tell you what we do to try and get that going is we don't ever talk to anybody. When somebody applies to be a tutor, we don't see them. We don't have a photograph of them. We don't meet them. So we have no knowledge. We don't ask them how old they are. So we don't, when we're trying to choose, we don't know their age. We don't know their gender. We don't know their ethnicity. We don't know anything really about them. So how do we choose? Well, what we do know is we know what makes a good tutor. And there's 10 things that make a good tutor. And we've clearly defined them. We've got them written down as statements. And what we do is we get 2 references. Any applicant has to have two referees, and they can't just choose somebody who's going to say nice things about them. It's their current line manager and their previous line manager. So we write to their current line manager and their previous line manager, and we ask them to rate them with their permission on these 10 things. And that is how the assessment is done. And that's what allows people to become a tutor or not. And I'm guessing whatever line you're in probably has an exact equivalent somehow that you can choose on merit alone if you wish to. And that seems to me just the only way to choose on merit alone. It is interesting though, because you might wonder, well, yeah, if you don't actually see them, not even photographs, what happens? And every now and again, not very often to be honest, but every now and again, we will have a get together. And it's interesting to see what our tutors look like. And I don't know about you, Amy, but the last time we had a get together, there was certain things that didn't surprise me. You know, there's sort of ethnicity diversity, gender diversity, but there's one thing that I thought was surprisingly kind of uniform almost. They all seemed to me remarkably young. And I thought, that's amazing, isn't it? That all these people are, pretty much consultant grade or thereabouts. And yet they are young. But perhaps that's just like policemen, as they say. Who knows? Yeah, this, yes, we're trying to have a US theme this afternoon because, well, it's morning time. It's 9 o'clock in New York. But here we are, we're trying to have a US theme. Know what you're trying to achieve. It's the next box we have to tick, isn't it? We have to know what we're trying to achieve, don't we? And here we are. It's I'm imagining that people know who these two are. Yep, that's JFK, John F. Kennedy, and his wife Jacqueline. Now, he said a good thing. Back in 1961, he said, we're going to get a man on the moon, which is good. But he also said, we're going to get a man on the moon by 1970. By the time 1970 comes, we will have a man on the moon. Now, that was an incredible thing to say, because if you think back to cars, we probably can't even think back to what cars looked like in 1961 or the 1960s. But they didn't look too great. And here was JFK saying, we're going to, never mind drive around in nice cars, we're going to get a man walking on the moon by the time 1970 comes. And it wasn't computers like we have now. If things go wrong on a space mission, and the Apollo missions had to work things out with pencil and paper. So it was the most remarkable thing to try and achieve. But they did achieve it. 1969, first man on the moon, and he set a goal of by 1970. So just scraping in. Deadlines and targets like that are great to set, aren't they? And for us, we use the words goals, our mission, our aims, not very fond of mission statements, to be honest. The organization's mission statements, they tend to be a bit disappointing, don't they? I don't know. But for us, if there's an individual team and an individual leader, for us to have our goals for the team, our mission, our aims, that seems to me like a good thing. Nice and clear. Now, people say that they should be achievable. And I suppose that's right. There's no point in having unachievable goals. But equally, it's a bit boring having goals which are kind of easy to achieve, isn't it? So they need to be challenging. So in this case, it wasn't let's have a man on the moon sometime whenever. No, by 1970. So we need challenging goals. It's just in UK at the moment. I forget what the government said. We're going to have millions of people vaccinated by the middle of February, millions of them. And at the moment, we are vaccinating 140 people every minute, which is kind of pretty good. There's 2 people being admitted to hospital every minute with COVID. There's 140 being vaccinated. So hopefully going in the right direction. But it's all very nice having goals, but we have a person from to come and inspect us. We voluntarily get ourselves inspected by an outside organization. And they always love us to have goals, and that's all very well, but I always sort of try and maintain that we need to operate by principles rather than goals particularly. So for example, if we'd had goals at the beginning of 2020, those goals might have been kicked into touch really by everything that happened in 2020. It doesn't matter though, because still operating a year later just by the same principles, and it's all panned out very nicely. Let me give you a little question though, to illustrate one of our principles, see if you have the same. We have certain courses which they just walk off the shelves. People just want more and more of them. DBT is one of them. The RAID course is another one. Davies risk assessment system, that's another. The address course is another. So those, they just, anything to do with all the treatment techniques, ACT and CBT, all those, there's people queuing up to buy them. And then we also have some courses which nobody wants to buy. Well, I won't tell you about them because they are, but it always seems a shame to us because we've got some really, really nice courses which we love, and nobody buys the blooming things. So now, which ones are we going to? We have a limited advertising budget, obviously. So which ones are we going to advertise? The ones that everyone buys anyway, or the ones that are really good courses but nobody buys? Put in chat if you would, which ones to, let's call number 1 is the ones that everybody buys anyway. Number 2 is the ones that are really good courses but nobody buys. Slap in 1 or 2 if you would. And Amy will tell me if anybody's writing anything.
And just remember to put to all panelists and attendees if you want everyone to see it. And we're getting a surge of 2s and a scattering of 1s.
Oh, my word. Yeah. That's interesting, isn't it? Because it took me a long time to get my head around this one, but what we do is we advertise the ones. We try and give people what they want. That's a principle. Try to give people what they want. So if everybody wants the DBT, RAID, Davies, address, ACT, and all the rest, that's what we advertise. We let people know all about those. Of course, you're absolutely right, those who put 2, you're absolutely right in the sense that we feel really sorry for the courses that nobody wants to buy. We feel it's really sad for these courses sitting there unloved when they're such good courses. But if people don't want them, there's no point in trying to push them down people's throats. So yeah, that's an example of one of the principles we operate by. Now here's principles still. Now, seems to us that it's good to be a principled organisation. Now, I'm going to pause here for a minute, actually, Ames, because and I'd be interested why. I'm guessing that most people will agree. Obviously, it's better to be a principled organisation than an unprincipled one. So I'm just trying to think what people think. Why is that? Is that, well? Actually, I'll stop talking because it'll be interesting to see what people have to say. Why is it good to be a principled organisation? That's the question. And if you can think of any decent answer to that, then I'll be interested to see what it is. I'm sure it is good, but why? In the meantime, you can gaze at the Market Harbour Building Society, which has just had its 200th anniversary.
I was just admiring your picture. It's nice.
It's great, isn't it?
Yeah. We've got a couple of answers coming through. That people will trust you, transparent and trustworthy, aligned values, structure to follow that all will be aware of. People know that what you stand for and what you're about, and then they can then decide whether to be connected to it. Building trust, credibility to guide your organisation, informs the structure of what you're doing. Sorry, I'm just spouting out a lot. Are you okay?
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah.
It's good ones, aren't they? Consistency.
Yeah.
Safe, contributing to society.
Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah, no, lots of fabulous ones.
That's fascinating, isn't it? Because there's a theme to those answers, isn't it? That even on a pragmatic basis, it works well. And of course, in a sense, the point of being a principled organisation is that it's just the right thing to do. And that's, even if it didn't work well, it's something we'd want to do, isn't it? So that's good. But it's remarkable because there's a whole load of different answers there, all of which have the same theme, that it works well as well. And I'm sure that's right. And somebody mentioned what to me is the top principle. Load of examples of principles there came in. But to me, the top principle is transparency. That's why I chose a building with a lot of windows. It would remind me of what I was meant to say. Transparency. And I'm not sure why it's good, but it always seems to me to be an excellent one. Because it gives you peace of mind for a start. Again, that's a pragmatic thing. It gives you peace of mind because, what would an example be? We're very strong on transparency. So in our organization, you could ask anything you like. Right now, anytime you like, you ask Amy or me or any of us, anything you like. And if we know the answer to what you ask, we will tell you. And for better or for worse, we'll tell you the answer to whatever you ask. And that's great because it gives you kind of peace of mind. That's very nice. But it also kind of it governs your thinking. Whatever we're discussing tomorrow or next week or next year, we have to know that if anybody asks us what we're doing or what our thinking was or what our reasoning was behind our decision or whatever, we are committed to saying what it was and being transparent about it. So that really is very, very good at guiding you. And one or two people were sort of alluding to that when they're in the answers. So principles is excellent. It gives you just a nice basis for life. And it's also pragmatically works well, yes. Now this one says, my Zoom taskbar keeps covering things up. This one says, always brief people together. You're the team leader, but whatever your team is doing, you brief people together. There's a great temptation to go off and, rather than logistically have the challenge of trying to get the whole team together to discuss whatever we're discussing, you tell one person what they're meant to do, and another person in the team what their job in the team is to do, and so on. And that's a really bad move, I think. Whatever the team's task is, it's good to brief together. A couple of reasons for that, probably. One is that people know that everybody has heard exactly the same as what they've heard. It hasn't been slanted this way or that way. everybody knows that they've heard exactly the same as everybody else, and vice versa. There's another one. If you've got one or two mischievous people in your team, which we're lucky enough not to have, but I have worked in teams where there have been some mischievous people, and they will deliberately misrepresent what you said. It has been known that people will deliberately misrepresent what you said. And who's to say that they're wrong? Because, people were briefed separately, so nobody heard what you said. So if somebody says you said, whatever, then no one can deny that. So always brief people together. It saves a lot of heartache. Oh yes, we're trying to continue our American theme here. This was, well, the question is for 2 points. Who said, stay hungry, stay foolish? While you're thinking about that one.
Mark Shenton is straight in there with Steve Jobs.
Oh, well, we'll see whether he gets his 2 points in a bit, see what anybody else says. Yes, there we are, stay hungry, stay foolish. Some people represent it as stay young, stay crazy. Well, whichever one, stay hungry, stay foolish, stay young, stay crazy. Here we are, we've got the guy on the left is 74, the guy on the right is 78. And they think the best thing they can do in their retirement is to be president of the United States. So, so good for them. But there they are, Trump and Biden. So how does that translate for the rest of us? Well, you'll have your examples, I'm guessing, but if I give you a couple of our examples, then maybe you can match them up and then see whether that, see what you think. For a start, there's these webinars, these Wednesday afternoon webinars. In a sense, they make no sense. Why would we be doing such a thing? It's why do you want to spend your Wednesday afternoon doing a free webinar? Well, I don't know. It's just fun, really, and it feels like a good thing to do. So there we are, and that seems to fit under the heading of "Stay hungry, stay foolish," I think. Likewise, we're advertising our Anytime courses in the United States, and the United States has a fantastic history of really good psychology and so on. So our courses in the UK and Ireland and Canada are really popular, really well bought, and they're really leading, if you like. In the United States, they're getting hammered. And so, in other words, no one's buying our courses, they're buying the long-established American ones. So us new ones there. But it'll change. We'll keep at it, and it'll change. So, but that's, again, comes under the heading of stay hungry, stay foolish. It's good to do.
Why has it got to do with staying hungry?
I suppose I think hungry is used as a kind of euphemism for being sort of energetic. And foolish is meant to be kind of naive. So you're not too worried about the way the world is, but you're worried more about the way the world could be. And as you said, Ames, it was indeed Steve Jobs who made that quote famous.
That was Mark Shenton for getting those points.
Oh, well done. He actually came from, he actually got it from the back of a magazine, he said. And it was a 1974 magazine called something like Whole Food or something like that. Stay hungry, stay foolish. But yeah, that was the idea. Stay really motivated and worry not about how the world is, but how it could be.
And Mark has put that it was from the Whole Earth catalogue.
Whole Earth, that's it. Well done, Mark.
Mark's some sort of Steve Jobs genius.
Yeah, he's on fire, isn't he? Yeah. Well, more than Steve Jobs, because it's traditionally attributed to Steve Jobs, but to go for Mark to know where he got it from is good. Well, make others feel powerful and effective, even in meetings. I don't know what you think, but seems to me the best way to make other people feel powerful and effective is to ensure they are actually powerful and effective, so they can actually have autonomy and so on. But in meetings in particular, that's I think that's always been an interesting one for us, because every time we have a meeting with kind of strangers in it, we would talk about whatever we're trying to decide. And at the end of the meeting, we say, right, let's, there we are then. That's what we're going to do then. We'll do that. And people from a lot of organizations will say, do you mean, are we actually going to do that then? So yeah, that's what we've been talking about for the last hour and a half. So that's what we're going to do. And they say, well, what do you mean without any, more meetings? Yeah, no, without any more meetings, that's what we do. And that goes down remarkably well. So it does make people in a meeting feel powerful and effective, because things happen on account of what's decided. So we're just ticking the boxes now. And here's one. Treat your colleagues as customers. So do please write if you disagree or have another suggestion or whatever. This one I think is one that's easy to underrate. Treat your colleagues as customers, because you'll be a leader of your team, leader of your organization maybe, and your team or organization will hinge on you to be doing certain things for them to be doing certain things. So they will ask you for whatever they need and can't perhaps move forward sometimes until you get back with whatever it is they want. So if you really treat your colleagues with urgency and get things done really as quickly as you can, if it's a colleague asking for something, really leap on it as an emergency or an urgency, then that really oils the wheels and get things running smoothly. I think sometimes these ideas are sort of best understood from the opposite. If you don't treat your colleagues with that same urgency, what happens is everyone's sitting around waiting for you to do whatever it is they need before they can get on and do anything. So the whole thing grinds to a halt. So that's absolute pivotal, I think. Right. Okay, here we are. Next one. As a leader, you need to have good ideas, which is great. But of course, people are leaders for whatever reasons, and they need to have good ideas. But the question is, where do you get them from then? What happens if you're not a person who has good ideas? Well, that's unfortunate, but you can ask other people. Some people are really good at kind of just discussing things with others and taking other people's good ideas and spotting a good idea when they see it and really taking it on board and adopting it as their own. And that works really well, especially if you give it an attribution. In other words, I got this idea from so-and-so. People think none the worse of you, that you still spotted that idea and spotted it as a good one. So it doesn't have to be from inside your own head. It can be from others. It's still a great idea. Okay, there we are. That was good, wasn't it?
That was really good.
Yeah. So there we go. There's Steve Jobs. Just in case we're wondering, that is Steve Jobs. And he had a good idea. It's amazing because at one stage, Nokia phones, I don't know whether anybody remembers Nokia phones, but at one stage, Nokia phones were it, Nokia mobile phones, that was it. Nokia was synonymous with a mobile phone, and they were really good. And you could just walk around talking to people on your mobile phone. That was fantastic. And it's just such a step forward from the previous 2 million years. And then Steve Jobs thought of a good idea. Well, he may have got it from somebody else, but he put forward a good idea. And that was to turn your mobile phone into a really powerful computer. A computer that the moonshots of the 1960s could only have dreamt of, but he probably couldn't even dream of it, just beyond all ken. And there it is. He needs to update a bit, I think, but there it is, basically, a nice iPhone. To have that as an idea, just amazing. Have good ideas. Well, back down to earth. And here we have, next one, need to have a feeling for the orchestra. And I don't suppose anyone knows who said that, because probably quite a few people have said it, really. But that was, I noticed, Simon Rattle, who's in England, he's the top conductor. I noticed him saying it. And what he meant was, it's all very well having a feeling for the music. Of course, if you're a conductor, you've got to have a feeling for the music. But you've also got to have a feeling for the orchestra. And I think in our line, if you're in the mental health and so on, it goes back to the Rogerian idea of unconditional positive regard, doesn't it? Or put more sort of prosaically, liking your team, liking everybody in your team. And I think that seems to be just really important. And of course, it's very easy to like people who are very competent and conscientious and do their job really well and are all sitting in their right seats, as it were, doing the job they're excellent at. It's very easy to like them then. But whether they are or whether they're not, that seems to be a very key notion.
Not having questions like we normally do. There's no need for anyone to write any questions, but if you'd like to, just pop them in the chat box and I will direct them at Will. He's very good. He can take even tough ones.
Okay, well, here's a tough one. You might like to, does anybody know who either of those two people is? No, nobody knows.
Oh, no, we've got Martina has got Ozil.
Yes, oh, great. Yep, that's Mesut Ozil, who until a few days ago played for Arsenal, and he was, at the time they bought him, he was their most expensive player.
The answers are pouring in now with Arteta as well.
Oh yeah, Mikel Arteta, who's the current manager of Arsenal. Mesut Ozil was an amazing player. He was just amazing. He was actually signed by one of Mikel Arteta's predecessors, namely Arsene Wenger. And Arsene Wenger absolutely loved Mesut Ozil to bits. He thought he was the greatest thing. Absolutely loved him to bits. And what do you think? Mesut Ozil played like a dream, like a genius. He was just phenomenal. And then when Arsene Wenger left and a different manager arrived, he just, somehow or other, he just no longer knew how to play football. He was just a shadow of his former self, just a shadow. And to this day, he did, when Mikel Arteta arrived, he didn't change at all. So to the extent that they've had to offload him to a different club. And he's one of the best examples ever, I think, or recently in the football world of you have to have a feeling for the orchestra. You have to like the people in the team. And it was just so clear with Mesut Ozil what a difference it made.
Michelle's asked, do you have any ideas for the best techniques for liking the less likable?
Well, I only laugh because I was playing for time. No is the short answer. But the only thing that I find helpful, and to be honest, Michelle, I'm not too good person for this at the moment, because we have actually developed now a team which is phenomenal. It hasn't always been the case at our place. We have, it has its phases, but for the last 10 or 15 years, been just phenomenal. So I've forgotten how to like the unlikable. But the only thing that I can recollect really is just reminding myself that it's my job. That it's my job to like them. And also, in order to motivate myself a little bit more, to tell myself, yes, but it's also not only my job, but it's also in my own best interests. Because if I don't like them, they just don't perform the same way. Just like Mesut Ozil to this day proves that. So, yeah.
And Dev has suggested that to always assume the benign and imagine they've got some difficult backstory.
Oh, lovely. That's a nice one, isn't it?
And we're getting lovely suggestions popping in as well. Empathise with them, spot similarities instead of differences.
Oh, lovely. I think, to be honest, the best one I ever heard was Goethe, he's 1750 to 1830. So he's not with us any longer. But Goethe had a very good saying. What he said was, if you treat a man as he is, you make him worse than he is. If you treat a man as if he already is what he could be, you make him what he should be. Of course, 1750 to 1830, they only had men. But these days you could probably substitute person or something like that. So there we are. I think, but the sentiment behind that, joking apart, is a really good one, I think. I think we've kind of said this before, and we have high standards and measure whether they're being achieved. People love high standards. That people want to be in an organization and a team that has high standards, don't they? People talk about, just sort of taking it easy and skiving and all this kind of thing, but people absolutely hate that idea. If you look at people who join the British Army, what do you think the regiments they want? The regiments they most want to get into are the SAS and the parachute regiment. Well, those are the ones where we have to work hardest, have the highest standards, and really, it's not regiments where you want to go and skive, but those are the most wanted regiments. So it's same thing applies to us. I think we have high standards. It's people actually love that. Okay. Well, continue our American theme. Who is
Somebody has just asked for you to repeat the Goethe quote, but actually Paul Lafferty has helpfully popped the full quote in chat, but just to all panelists. If you're able to do that to everybody, Paul.
Oh, fantastic. Treat a man as he is, you make him worse than he is. Treat a man as if he already is what he could be, and you make him what he should be. It's a little bit of a tongue twister, but it's a good one. While you're thinking about that one, who is this? While you're thinking about that, I'll yap on. Let's take a vote on it. I would urge you as a team leader, an organization leader, never ever to take a vote on anything. 2 reasons. If you do, and you get a 52 to 48 split, then you know what's going to happen. The losing 48 are going to spend the rest of their lives trying to prove to you that they were right all along, and they're going to be undermining the majority decision. And that's really not what you want. The other thing, though, is because obviously you are very interested as a leader what everyone's opinions are, what their viewpoints are, what their information is, and so on. And the other reason is that you get much better discussions going if everybody discussing knows that they're not influencing or they're not sort of determining the decision. They can argue for whatever they want, and they know they can just think aloud, they can say what they want. No one's going to say, okay, well, if that's what you think, then that's what we're going to do. No, they just, you will decide, otherwise you wouldn't be a leader. That's what you're paid to do. Not anybody can take a vote. That's not being a leader. But people just are freed up to say what they want if they know it's you that's going to take the decision. So 2 really solid reasons. We have elections which kind of enshrine the disadvantages of taking a vote on things. It's democracy, and I don't have a better system than that, but in leading our teams, we don't need to enshrine that disadvantage. We can do as it says there.
We've got a couple of ideas for the picture. We've either got LBJ, President Johnson, or Roosevelt. Oh,
very good. 2 marks for those who said Roosevelt. I looked up when I was doing this morning. I looked up who are the most popular American presidents ever. And Lincoln was one. I thought that's a bit long time ago. Roosevelt, of course, was Second World War time. and I can't remember the third one. Anyway, but anyway, very popular US president. Yeah, have great salad cream. I'm not joking here, because there's two bits to this. One is to have salad cream, and also instant coffee and tea bags and butter and stuff. All those kind of things. Provide that for your team if you possibly can, because otherwise you have no idea. Well, you probably do know. You've probably seen it first, and most people have seen firsthand the amount of harassment is concerned by everyone bringing their own bits of coffee and tea and milk and butter and so on. And it just causes so much friction in the system for such a tiny thing. It's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. So for tuppence halfpenny, you can get rid of all that in one fell swoop. So have tea, coffee, milk, butter, salad cream, etc. But have the very best tea, coffee, salad cream, butter, milk that you can possibly get your hands on. Because it is symbolic. You cannot be saying to people, we want you to be absolutely doing great work and we're going to feed you rubbish coffee. It just is incongruent. It just doesn't mesh together. If you want great work, then they got to have great coffee. It's just got to fit. So have great salad cream.
Sylvia has the Royal Blend, apparently.
Really? What do we have?
We have Heinz.
Salad cream, yeah.
Salad cream. I should think Royal Blend's a tea, is it? I don't know. If it is, we have PG Tips, I think.
Do we? What about coffee?
I think so. Coffee, we have a really nice one. It's called a Zara, which is completely in a different league to everything else.
Right, okay.
Sorry, now you've got my favourite subject.
Right. Okay. And finally, well, it's not quite finally, to be honest, but it's 2:53, so it's getting towards finally.
Sorry, but this is an exciting development that the Royal Blend is Fortnum and Mason.
No, really?
Yeah.
Golly.
No, oh no, I read that wrong. It's not. It's Fortune and Manson.
Right.
I'll be quiet now.
Next one is to get inspected. It's fantastic to have an outside person come and say what they think. It's a little while ago now, but I remember one big organization ordered in one go. They ordered 20 big courses from us. And I was talking to the person who was ordering them, and I said, look, you've got really good psychologists in your own organization. If you like, we will train them for nothing, free of charge. We'll train them, and that'll save you half the cost of these 20 courses, which was a lot of money. And they said, no, thanks. We like to have outsiders come in. And I thought, gosh, you must like it a lot, because it's a lot of money sort of saying goodbye to. But I see what they're saying, actually. It is important to have outsiders come in. And we think we run our place perfectly. But it's nice to have people come in and say what they think as well. It's really good. And finally, we know, don't we, from our work with mental health and so on, that on top of all the good things, you might have, live life according to your principles, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But also, if you're doing all that, then a bit of fun also puts the icing on the cake. And I think it's the same with work, isn't it? There's a saying, isn't there, that you don't have to be solemn to be serious. So you'll see, if you go to some operating theatres, you'll see surgeons kind of singing and joking and so on. Does that mean they're not taking seriously what they're doing? No, of course it doesn't. Of course they are taking seriously what they're doing. But you don't have to be solemn to be serious. And equally, if you're not, if you're like me and you're not really a fun person, then you can delegate fun to somebody else. There'll be somebody on your team who's good at making fun. So that can be a task that's delegated. So There we are. That's it.
Poor Moira, in her workplace, they had to bring their own tissues because they were using too many.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Yeah, no, sorry, you're stunned, aren't you?
how many who was measuring how many tissues are being used?
Too many.
Yeah. Oh gosh. So there we are. A bit of fun does no harm. Right, there we are. So if you've got well, I suppose people can hang around and share their advice to each other or whatever, really. But there we are.
Just to enhance Mark Shenton's knowledge, he did say that Steve Jobs is a tidbit. He said to his engineers that he wanted a piece of glass he could type on, knowing he could make a phone from it.
Good gosh.
Steve Jobs fact of the day. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah. Well, good old Steve Jobs. He was...
And somebody's asked when the next webinar is, and it is same time, same place next week.
Yep. Lovely. Okay, so we won't shut down for a bit, and we'll stay around. But meantime, thanks for coming, everybody, and see you next week, hopefully.
Nice to see you all. Bye.
Bye.